You know, it's a scenario that feels like it was ripped straight out of a geopolitical thriller. It's this high-stakes thought experiment about two of the world's closest allies. So today, we're going to dive into a fascinating, and let's be clear, a purely hypothetical analysis that asks a really bold question about power, politics, and geography.
All right, let's just get right to it. The main question here is as provocative as it gets. Could the United States, just from a military standpoint, actually annex Canada? I know, it's a jarring thing to even think about, but stick with me, because unpacking it reveals some pretty surprising strategic thinking.
I mean, if you look at it on paper, it's not even a fair fight. Our source material says the US is trillions of times stronger than Canada. We're talking about a massive, overwhelming gap in military power, in economic muscle, you name it. Sure, Canada has all this land and resources, but a pretty small population to defend it all. So, you have to ask, right? If the power imbalance is that huge, why has this never, ever been a serious thought? Well, the answer, according to our source, has nothing to do with military might. It's about something way more valuable in today's world: reputation.
And the source really nails it with this quote. It says an invasion would obliterate the American reputation. And we're not talking about just a little diplomatic spat. No, this would be a self-inflicted wound so deep, there'd be absolutely no coming back from it on the world stage. The fallout would be instant and, honestly, catastrophic. The source figures that pretty much all of America's allies would immediately side with Canada. Just try to picture it. Alliances like NATO, that have shaped the world for decades, just shattered, overnight. The result would be complete and total isolation, both diplomatically and economically. Okay, so politically, it's a total disaster. An absolute own goal. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast. This is where the source makes a really interesting pivot. It argues that even with the whole world backing Canada, the actual military reality on the ground wouldn't really change. And this is where the analysis gets really, really interesting. We shift from the politics to pure geography and strategy. The source points to what it calls Canada's key vulnerability, and it's not its army or its navy. It's right there on the map. Now, check this out, because this one fact changes everything. A staggering 90%, 90, of Canada's entire population lives in this pretty thin strip right along the US border. This single demographic fact is the absolute linchpin of the whole hypothetical strategy. So here's the thing. An invading force wouldn't actually need to conquer the second largest country on Earth. There'd be no need to trek through the massive, empty, frozen north. According to the source, you'd only have to focus on that one little populated strip. So, the strategy would be pretty simple. Step 1, completely ignore the huge landmass up north. It's basically irrelevant from a strategic point of view. Step 2, focus all your power on seizing that southern corridor. That's where almost everyone lives, where all the big cities and industries are. And if you do that, you've basically taken control of the whole country. And all this leads us to the source's final, pretty clever conclusion. It calls this whole scenario a politically disastrous feasibility. The big takeaway here is that just because something might be possible from a military or logistics angle, it doesn't mean it's smart or right or even survivable politically. The cost of winning would be, well, everything. Which leaves us with one final big question to think about. This entire thought experiment is based on an old-school idea of conquest. You take the land, you take the buildings. But in our super interconnected world, is that really what power is anymore? I mean, does controlling a strip of land mean anything if you've lost the trust of the entire world and the will of the people who live there? It's a pretty important question for our time.